Okay, so not the best news exactly. I was leaving Blue Harbor, going back to the campsite yesterday. The car didn't start right away, but it did catch. And then I turned on the headlights and noticed these are usually a little bit brighter than they're being today. And the farther I drove, the dimmer the headlights got. So I did make it back to the campsite, which is really cool, but obviously there's a problem. I also noticed there's an extra light on the dash that wasn't there before, and that was the ignition light was on. So I did some checking this morning and found out that it was the generator. So it could have been the control box. I was kind of hoping for that. I might be able to find one, but no, generator's not generating. So we're going to have to take it apart and see if we can make things a little bit better. Okay, so if you want to test to see if the generator's working, what you have to do first is rule out the control box. And this guy's job is to switch on and off 12 volts to that little wire terminal on the back of the generator. And that's what turns on an electromagnet. And when you spin something past an electromagnet, when you spin metal past an electromagnet, it will generate a current. And so this turns on and off that magnet. When it's off, there's no generating. When it's on, there is. And so that's the control box's only job over here. So what you can do to test if it's the control box or the generator is you can take that little 12 volt wire, which goes over here to the F terminal, and all you need to do is connect a wire from either A or A1, doesn't matter, that's battery voltage, connect that to the F, and then start the engine. You have to be running high enough RPM or it's not going to tell you anything, and watch with a voltmeter, and you should see the voltage going up and up above battery voltage. If it does not, then you've basically taken the control box out of the equation. If it does, shut off the engine and disconnect that wire pretty quick because you don't want the voltage to get too high, but you've confirmed that this is the problem. So in my case, I've already done that. 12 volts straight from battery. In fact, I even, instead of connecting it to the F wire to rule out the wire, I connected it straight back to the generator. Still nothing, and so that generator's got to come out. I don't have I'm not in the shop, obviously. I'm, as you can see, at campground here. So I don't have my usual tripod and all that sort of setup, so I am not going to film me taking this off, but bolt there, one on the bottom underneath, and the generator will come right off. Just move it around the belt. A couple of wires you need to disconnect, just pay attention to where they go, and we're going to see if maybe the brushes just aren't making good contact in the back. Hopefully that's it. Okay, so here's the generator. Technically, I guess you could, in some cases, do some of this while it's inside the car, or it's a really nice day outside. I could have done it on the picnic bench, except for a couple of things. First of all, again, I don't really have anything to hold the camera, so you wouldn't be able to see it. And secondly, in the amount of time it took me to unbolt the generator from the car and bring it in here, like 8 people came, like, oh, what kind of car is that? And it's great. I love talking about it, but you know, if I'm in the middle of trying to get it to run so that I can use it, that's a problem. So one of my favorite questions with an Austin-Healey that I get is, you know, it's a James Bond car, isn't it? Like, sure. I just started saying yes because it's easier. Anyway, what we are going to do is to take this apart. We've got the brushes are going to be in the back here. This is where all of the connecting ends happen, and this is where all the magnet wizardry happens. And again, to kind of explain it a little bit more in detail, what's going on is, you learned in high school science class, if you move a piece of metal past a magnet, it generates a current, okay? So how they regulate it is, instead of a permanent magnet, they use an electromagnet inside here. That's what, where to go? That's what the small terminal does. That turns power on to the electromagnet. So the regulator is just deciding, does this get 12 volts or not? There's a big magnet in here that is getting powered. And when that magnet is on, as long as the generator's spinning, it is generating current. Okay? So that's basically, that's all there is to it. So what you need to know is that magnet getting power? So we can test that with a voltmeter, and then you can clean up the contacts inside. So I know 12 volts is getting to that terminal, but whether or not it's making it through the magnet, who knows? That is very, it's pretty rare for the magnet to not be working, right? So the outside casing is probably not where the problem is. I'm going to guess it's more in the back. So we're going to take that apart. Okay, so this There are two long screws that go through here. I've already taken those out, but it may take a little bit of twisting with a screwdriver, but you can get it. After that, the back case comes out, there's a center bit, and it comes off the front here. Okay. In an effort to not ruin the table, I've put a towel down, but this actually started coming loose. So, there we go. This is the back. And assuming the camera's focusing on this, you've got two brushes. There's one, and there's the other. And I can already tell there's quite a lot of carbon in here. So that may be possibly the issue coming out of here. Those brushes almost definitely will need to get replaced. If you do need to replace them, there's a screw there. You undo that and then just feed the brush out. Okay, it is pressed in. You see this kind of coil spring. That's what presses the brush out. These have seen better days, so I'm not even sure they're 100% reaching, but maybe I can make something work where I can at least get going again and get home. My guess is one or both of these is sort of lost contact, and what they're supposed to be doing is contacting here on this surface, and as it comes around, you're going to have electrical contact there, and that is what is going to carry the current that's generated and take it out to the car where you can use it. So if you got out a voltmeter, you will see that these are connected to the big wire on the back, the D or the dynamo terminal. And so we need power to be getting out there, but if you don't have good contact, which I'm really thinking we don't, that's not going to work. So we're going to take this apart a little bit farther. This case can come off. Be careful not to damage any of the wires. Okay. Alright, so there's a few things that can go wrong with these. Generally speaking, most of the time, it's not going to be in here. I guess technically you could be applying power to it and maybe it's never getting to ground, but if you measure and it's continuous, it's probably fine. One of the things you could do is hook a wire up to this terminal and hook up the case itself to a ground. And if you power it with 12 volts, you should be able to take a screwdriver, it'll stick to the magnet. Or if you have a voltmeter, just check it to make sure that it's a complete circuit. As long as it is, yeah, the outside case is generally fine. So the other things that can happen, like I said with the brushes, and these are pretty worn, so I'm thinking that's likely where the problem is. Or it could just be a bad connection. So we're going to clean this up before we put it back. Sometimes you find that it's all rusted, not making a good connection. These are where the power is generated, right? So you're spinning metal past an electromagnet. Remember, that's on the outside casing. And you're spinning metal past it. That's generating the current. And that current is transmitted to all of these contact points here, and they're coming out through the brushes. And that's what allows it to spin, but it's still generating voltage for you. So you've got a couple of bearings, I guess, that can go bad. There's one right there, and that's what this rides on. There's one at the front, but the bearings in this are operating pretty smoothly. So I think what's going on is those brushes aren't good enough. If I can find a set, I will absolutely replace them. If not, maybe there's something we can get to push them out a little bit farther. But that's basically our option here, is to clean it up and see if we can get it to operate a little bit better. Now, just for a visual, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the back plate on. Well, it's not the case. And it's not exactly the strongest connection. So, yeah, in fact, this brush is barely riding on it at all. Okay, so, update here. What we've got is our multimeter. You could stick that on ohms, or some of them have a setting for, technically it's for diodes, but what'll happen is, if you have a complete circuit, it'll jump the needle up, okay? So that's how you can test, and what you want to make sure is, first of all, that it's actually working. So make sure that the brushes have contact all the way through their circuit. Okay, so we've got that. You can test the main casing. And again, I'm putting it on the terminal and then just on the ground part of the casing. That works, okay. So we know we've got continuity where we need it, and I'm fairly confident that the issue is that these brushes just suck. I mean, look at them. There's really not much space. These should be probably quite a bit more longer, maybe another 1/4 of an inch, even more than that. And as I put this on the armature here, it basically wasn't making contact, or it was a very loose contact. So what I'm going to try and do, and again, this is just to get me home. I need to replace these brushes, but just to get me home, I'm going to see if I could put a little shim behind the spring. I don't like that idea, but again, I need to get this running so that I can possibly drive it and then see if I can get some parts. AH Spares is at the convention, so if I can get the car out there, maybe they can help. But anyway, so a piece of foam there, and then I'll replace the brushes later, and we'll see if it works. I'm going to clean that up. In my toolkit, I've got a little piece of very light sandpaper. I would prefer a scuffing pad, but this is what I've got to hand, so I'm going to try and clean that up a little bit. Just basically make sure brushes are making decent contact first. You don't want to shave off anything, just make sure they're clean. Then I'm going to get a rag and go back and clean that up. Let's see, I'll spin this. I'm not thinking it's the connection that's actually the biggest problem. You don't want to put it back in when it's already dirty and could have a better potential for conducting something. There are better ways to rebuild these, but roadside repair here. We've got a nice area of contact here. And on the brushes. And ideally, these brushes are toast, okay? This needs to go. I'm going to order parts tonight, I promise. But if in the meantime we can just get them to stick out a slight bit farther, we might actually be able to make contact and get some generating back. So let's see what we can do. Okay, so what I've done here is I've got some shims I've made out of some plastic that I found. That ought to handle the heat a little bit better than foam or paper. It might melt, but to get the brushes out, or loose enough so that I can fit it in, you just unscrew the wire from the terminal with your magnetic screwdriver and fling it away, and it comes out like so. So then all I need to do is put a shim behind it and get it back in there, and hopefully, it probably isn't going to take much. 20 thousandths on each side should actually do it, because it was making contact just recently, and that should be enough to get me home. So I'm thinking a shim on each side. We'll put it back together and see if we get some power. Okay, so we've cut up some plastic bits. We've put in our shims. I don't know how well you can see it. It's a little bit of red in there. Let me get a flashlight. Maybe you'll be able to spot it. There we go. So you could probably see a little bit of red. That's a small piece of plastic that I put in. I did that on both sides. And in theory, anyway, that will tighten up the clearances between these brushes and the armature. And let's just put it on the back and sort of test that. That's a good sign that I actually have to sort of move the brushes around to finagle it. And yeah, it's not a fantastic connection, but it is touching, and I don't see the brushes don't have any open areas between them now. So I think if I were to put this back on the car, it might actually generate some electricity. And yeah, all right, let's see if it works. Here goes nothing. As you're putting it back together, notice there's some notches on there on the main case. There are corresponding notches then here and on the front. So that's going to be important when you put it back together to make sure it's oriented properly. And it'll also help you get the screws lined up, otherwise you'll never get those in. Okay. It's a slight chore to be able to get that back in if you've got new brushes, just because they're longer. And then in the case of the Healey generator, we're going to put in one screw, because there's an attachment for some wires on the other side. If we can get that to line up, that'd be perfect. Okay, that's our generator back together. The only part that I haven't put in is there's a screw that goes on the other side, but again, there's a ring with some wires that kind of just get attached there to hold it to the back. So I'll put that on once it's in the car. But we're going to get this back in place and get our voltmeter out and test to see if we are generating some power now. Okay, so here's what we've done. We've got the generator back in place. Obviously the engine's running. Got our voltmeter, and we're just going to connect it to battery power here. Now I know that it's reading 20 on the scale of 1 to 50, but it was reading 15 earlier. It's just a crap voltmeter. But the point is, it's a higher reading, which means our battery... So, irony of irony, my camera ran out of battery. But anyway, as I was saying, we've got the generator back in. And I did just start the engine. We've checked it with our voltmeter here. And if you're curious what you do, touch one end to ground, positive or negative, depending on the polarity of your car. Mine is negative ground. And the other lead, connect to battery, which could be the A or the A1 terminal. Either one of those should be fine. Basically any brown wire. And start the car, make sure the revs are high enough. And if the voltmeter reads higher than it did before, then you are good to go. So this one's kind of crap. It was saying 15 with a charging system that wasn't working, but now it's reading 20. So I'm just looking for it, relatively speaking, and that means it's charging. The other way you can tell... Okay, sit down inside the car here, and you've got your ignition light. Now normally when you turn the key on before the engine starts, you get a little light illuminating, okay? That light should go out once you start the engine. Sometimes if you've got a generator in your car, it's not going to go out till you give it some revs. It's because generators don't start charging until it hits 1,000, 1,300 RPM. So if you're below that, that light might illuminate. That's normal. But if you are cruising and that light is on, that means that your system is not charging properly, or that something is wrong in the system that would mimic the same things. So the light is out, which means our generator is now generating again. Control box checked out. We tested that first. We pressed the brushes a little bit harder by using some shims, and we're good to go. So there you have it. Our generator is now generating again, and I'd say we're in good shape. So I think for one more day of Conclave, that's probably going to be good enough. But then I got to get it home and get some new brushes in that generator. And I guess I don't need that new alternator kit after all, although that might be something coming up in a future video. So that's it for this video, guys. I'll see you next time.